He was the storm I swore I could weather, and the man I spent 10 years meticulously plotting to destroy. Every whispered secret, every stolen opportunity, every calculated betrayal led me to this moment, face to face with the billionaire whose empire I intended to ruin. But Adrian Cross wasn't just a man with a fortune, he was a predator with a memory that never forgets, a mind that never rests, and a heart that plays a game far darker than mine. What I thought was my revenge was only the beginning of his. In the shadowed halls of his penthouse, in the quiet corners where danger licked at the edges of desire, I realized I might not be the one controlling the game and I might never survive it unscathed. Part 1. I had been planning this for 10 years. Every late night, every whispered promise I never intended to keep, every carefully engineered misstep in his world, it had all led me here, standing outside the penthouse doors of Adrian Cross, the man whose name alone could make the city shiver. I hadn't come here for love. I hadn't come for closure. I came for blood. Mine, maybe his, definitely mine. The elevator chimed softly, its polished metal walls reflecting my own reflection back at me, and I studied the woman I had become, poised, elegant, lethal in a quiet way. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I stepped out, the soft hum of the city below fading under the hum of tension inside my chest. I had rehearsed my face, my tone, every movement. I was the actress, the villain, the survivor. Yet, something in the air smelled of fire and leather, and not the kind I could control. He was already waiting. Of course he was. Adrian Cross didn't need to be told what was coming, he always knew. He stood there, tall, impossibly commanding even in a dark grey shirt and black trousers that were expensive enough to make me wince. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, unreadable yet accusing, sharp enough to cut through the thick armor I'd built around myself. The moment our eyes met, the air changed, charged, dangerous, intimate. I had imagined this reunion 1,000 times, but nothing could prepare me for the heat of his gaze, the weight of 10 years of memories and grudges condensed into a single look. "You're late," he said, his voice low, teasing, a velvet threat that slid under my skin and made it tingle in ways I had sworn off years ago. "I'm exactly on time," I countered, my tone firm, measured. But my pulse betrayed me, hammering against my ribs like it wanted to announce my presence before I even spoke. He smiled, just a hint, a tilt of his lips that promised trouble, and my carefully rehearsed mask began to fracture. Adrian always knew how to push the right buttons, the ones that made me want, despite myself, to obey him. And that was dangerous. That was exactly why I had come. 10 years, I said, my voice finally softening into something I didn't entirely recognize as mine. 10 years I've waited for this. 10 years you've tried to ruin me, he corrected smoothly, taking a single step closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from him. And 10 years I've known. It hit me like a punch to the stomach. He had known. Every move I had made, every scheme I had set in motion, every whisper of betrayal I had been dancing into his hands all along. "You knew." I breathed, disbelief and fury tangling in my chest. "Of course I knew," he said, his smile widening, but there was no warmth in it. "And yet, here you are. Trying anyway." I wanted to retreat, to run and never look back. But my body, my mind, my very soul seemed frozen by the tension between us, by the dangerous pull of him. I had spent 10 years building an empire in the shadows, plotting to ruin him, and now that moment had arrived, and I was paralyzed by his presence, by the raw, intoxicating power he radiated without even trying. "You think you can control me," I whispered, more to convince myself than him. "I never thought I needed to be controlled," he said, circling me slowly, predatorily. You think you're the hunter. But the truth is, you've always been my prey." The words were a lash across my face, and I flinched without meaning to. I hated that I did. But the fire in his eyes, the dangerous elegance in his every movement, it was intoxicating. I had planned his downfall, mapped it in my mind like an artist crafting a masterpiece, and yet every instinct screamed that I was the one in danger. "You think this is a game?" I demanded, lifting my chin, forcing my voice to be steel when inside I was molten. "Everything with you is a game," he said, stepping closer until the space between us was charged, almost unbearable. "But I play to win. And you've been playing with the wrong player." My hands twitched at my sides, aching to reach for something, anything that could give me an edge. But I was unarmed, no weapons, no allies, just me and him. The thought should have terrified me, but instead, it made my heart race, my blood sing, and my mind sharp as a knife. "I don't scare easily," I said, my voice low but firm, though I felt the tremor that betrayed me. "I've survived worse than you." "Have you?" he asked, tilting his head, as if genuinely curious. "Because I don't see it." His gaze drilled into me, and I felt like glass about to shatter. "I see a woman who's beautiful, cunning, and reckless enough to think she can outsmart me. And I love that about you. Hate it, want it, fear it all at once." The heat in the room seemed to thicken, the city's distant hum falling away until it was just us, two predators circling each other, the weight of a decade of secrets pressing down like a storm about to break. I wanted to strike, to scream, to make him pay for knowing everything I had done. And yet, I wanted to melt under the intensity of him, to let go of the control I had clung to for so long. "You've always been a problem for me," he continued, voice dropping, almost tender in the dangerous way that made my knees weak. "But I've never wanted to fix it. Not really. Not until now." My breath caught. He had a way of saying things that seemed impossible, of turning my own defiance into a weapon against me. I wanted to push him away, wanted to remind him that this was a war, that 10 years of planning were not something he could erase with a glance. "I didn't come here for your approval," I said, my hands trembling slightly, betraying the control I had rehearsed for years. "I came here to destroy you. And I've been waiting for you," he said simply, eyes darkening, a shadow falling across his face. "Because now, finally, we can see who survives. You or me." The words were a challenge, a declaration, a promise. And I wanted, desperately, to meet it. To stand tall, unbroken, unafraid. But the truth was, I had never felt fear like this before, not fear of losing, not fear of pain, not fear of him. He was the storm I had tried to outrun, and now I was trapped in its eye. "I didn't just plan your downfall," I said, voice low, almost a whisper, almost a confession. "I planned everything you hold dear. I've waited 10 years to see you crumble." His lips curved into a smile that was all danger and fire. "And yet, here you are, alive. Breathing. Still standing. Still thinking you're in control. You amuse me." I clenched my fists, trying to steady the storm of desire and rage that threatened to consume me. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, imagined every possible reaction, every possible outcome. And yet, nothing had prepared me for the suffocating intensity of him. The way he made me feel like the world had narrowed down to him and me, like every breath I took was somehow tied to him, like every heartbeat was a countdown to something inevitable and terrifying. "I am in control," I said finally, my voice firmer this time, though my body betrayed me with a shiver that I couldn't hide. "You underestimate me." "Perhaps," he murmured, stepping so close that I could feel the warmth of him against my skin. "Or perhaps you underestimate yourself. 10 years, and you've finally walked right into my arms. Right where I've been waiting all along." The words were a dagger, and I felt the shift in the room, subtle but undeniable. The tension between us was electric, raw, impossible to ignore. Every instinct screamed at me to fight, to run, to scream. And yet, another part of me, a darker, deeper part, wanted to surrender, to see where this dangerous dance would lead, to test the limits of desire and power and vengeance. I swallowed hard, the taste of adrenaline sharp in my mouth. "Then show me," I said, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something behind his stormy eyes, approval, amusement, perhaps even a glimmer of respect. "Show you," he echoed, and the low rumble of his laugh made my stomach twist. "Oh, I plan to show you far more than that." The city lights flickered across the glass walls behind him, painting him in gold and shadow, an impossible silhouette of power and danger. And I realized, with a clarity that was both exhilarating and terrifying, that I had not come here to win. I had come here to play, and now the rules were no longer mine. Every step I took, every breath I drew, every heartbeat was a gamble, and Adrian Cross was a master of the game. But I had waited 10 years for this. 10 years to see the man I loved and hated and feared brought low. And now, the real game was about to begin. I could feel it, the tension coiling tight in my chest, the heat between us sparking like wildfire. And I knew, without a doubt, that whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. Part 2. The moment the door closed behind me, sealing us in the penthouse, the air between us thickened, charged with something dangerous and delicious. I could feel the weight of Adrian's gaze, heavy, predatory, and I wondered for a split second if I had made a mistake walking into his world unarmed. But retreat wasn't an option. I had spent 10 years preparing for this confrontation, planning his downfall down to the last detail. And yet, standing here, just a few feet from him, I realized that maybe the game had always been his to control. "You've always wanted control," he murmured, circling me like a predator stalking its prey. "But control is an illusion, sweetheart. You never had it with me." "I had enough," I said, lifting my chin, trying to summon the confidence I had cultivated over a decade. "Enough to ruin you, enough to bring everything you built to the ground." He chuckled, low, dark, and utterly intoxicating, and the sound vibrated through me in a way I hated and craved at the same time. "Did you? Tell me, because from where I stand, you've been playing right into my hands all along." A flicker of doubt stabbed at me, but I pushed it aside. "No. Not now. Not after 10 years. I planned everything. Every move. Every misstep you didn't see coming. You might have guessed some of it, but you won't survive what's next." "Is that so?" His voice was velvet over steel as he stepped closer, closing the space between us until I could feel his heat, smell the sharp tang of his cologne mixed with something darker, danger, power, desire. "And what, exactly, is next?" I swallowed, the lump in my throat tasting like iron. The truth was, I didn't know if I could follow through. 10 years of scheming had led to this room, this man, this intensity, and my carefully constructed plans suddenly felt fragile, laughably inadequate against the force of him. "Revenge," I said finally, my voice low, dangerous. "Everything you've built, everything you've loved. I'll take it all away." He tilted his head, his stormy eyes gleaming with something I couldn't name. "And you think that scares me?" I should have felt fear. I should have flinched, stepped back, anything. But I didn't. My pulse hammered, my skin tingled with tension and anticipation, and somewhere deep inside, a wild part of me wanted him to push back, to show me that he was more than I had imagined, more than the monster I had spent a decade plotting to destroy. He moved closer, his hand brushing against my arm, light, deliberate, and I shivered at the contact. "You've been plotting me for 10 years, he murmured, his lips close to my ear. "But you never considered that I'd been plotting too." The words were a blade, cutting through my certainty. He had known. He had seen every move, every betrayal, every secret corner I had hidden in for 10 years. And he had let me think I was the hunter, while in reality, I had been the one ensnared in his trap. You've been planning against me?" I breathed, fear and disbelief mingling with a thrill I couldn't ignore. "Not against me," he corrected, his voice a low growl that made my chest tighten. "For me. For us. For the inevitable conclusion you were too stubborn to see coming. I've been waiting, watching, guiding, and now it's finally time to finish the game." I stepped back instinctively, but the corner of the penthouse trapped me, the city lights outside casting everything in stark, golden shadows. He was everywhere at once, his presence inescapable, suffocating, irresistible. I realized then that I wasn't just facing a man, I was facing the storm itself. And storms didn't negotiate. Storms consumed. "You think you can manipulate me," he said, tilting his head, a predator's smile curling on his lips. "But you forget that I thrive on chaos. I am chaos. I felt my knees weaken, my carefully maintained armor cracking under the heat of his gaze, under the proximity of him. 10 years of preparation, 10 years of plotting, and now the truth I had fought to ignore became undeniable. Adrian Cross was a force I could neither fight nor tame. And part of me, a reckless, dangerous part, wanted nothing more than to surrender to it. You've always been reckless, he whispered, stepping closer until I could feel his breath against my skin. That's why I never truly feared you. Because I understood you. Because I could see you for what you are. What I am is dangerous, I hissed, though my voice quavered, betraying me. And you've made it personal. Personal? He laughed softly, a dark, melodic sound that wrapped around me like silk and steel. Oh, sweetheart. Everything with us is personal. Always has been. And now, we see the endgame. He moved with a precision that made my heart race, closing the gap entirely until there was no space left between us. I could feel the tension, the heat, the barely contained violence of desire, and I realized that everything I had built, everything I had planned, had led to this confrontation, not a battle, but an inevitable collision. You've waited 10 years, he murmured, his lips brushing against my temple, sending shivers down my spine. And I've waited just as long. To see you realize that the game isn't about destruction. It's about revelation. What revelation? I asked, my voice trembling despite myself. That sometimes, he whispered, lips dangerously close to mine, the person you think you're destroying is the one holding the only key to your salvation. My chest tightened, my mind reeling, and I stumbled slightly under the force of his presence. I had planned to see him fall, to make him pay, to take control and watch him crumble. And now, standing in his penthouse, feeling the raw, almost unbearable intensity of him, I realized that the game had shifted. The hunter had become the hunted, and the rules had changed without my noticing. He pressed closer, and I could feel the heat of him against me, the promise of power and danger and desire coiling tight between us. Do you feel it? He whispered. The inevitability of it all? 10 years of plotting, 10 years of waiting, and now, here we are. You and me. No masks, no lies. Just the truth. The truth was a burning thing in my chest, a wildfire of fear, longing, and something darker that I couldn't name. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but imagination could not prepare me for the intensity, the intimacy, the undeniable pull of him. I thought I could control everything, I admitted, voice shaking, raw with honesty I hadn't allowed myself in years. I thought I could make you mine, or break you. I didn't realize. You didn't realize, he murmured, completing my thought, that the moment you walked into my life, you lost control. And that's exactly what I planned all along. The words were a shock, a revelation that struck me with the force of a hurricane. 10 years of scheming, 10 years of plotting, and he had been 10 steps ahead, orchestrating every move, every reaction, every trap. I was stunned into silence, and for the first time in a decade, I felt the raw, terrifying thrill of being truly powerless. He leaned closer, his lips hovering near mine, the scent of him intoxicating, addictive, impossible to resist. And now, he said, voice low, dangerous, and intimate, it's time to see how we end this. Together. My heart pounded in my chest, wild, untamed, and I realized that the truth I had spent 10 years chasing, the revenge, the power, the destruction, was nothing compared to the storm of desire, fear, and longing that surged between us. I had planned his downfall, but Adrian Cross had planned something far worse, to claim me, completely, utterly, and irrevocably. I whispered, my words faltering, my carefully rehearsed plans crumbling under the heat of him. I don't know if I can. He silenced me with a hand on my cheek, thumb brushing against my lips, a touch both tender and commanding. You can, he said simply. Because this is bigger than revenge. Bigger than games. It's the truth we've been running from for 10 years. And in that moment, I understood. The past 10 years of plotting, waiting, and scheming had led not to destruction, but to revelation. The man I had spent a decade trying to ruin was the man I could not live without. And the game I thought I had mastered was only the beginning of something far more dangerous, far more consuming. I closed my eyes, letting the tension, the fear, and the desire wash over me, and for the first time in 10 years, I surrendered not to a plan, not to revenge, not to control, but to him. Adrian Cross. The man who had known all along, who had waited all along, who had played a game far more intricate and devastating than I could have imagined. When our lips finally met, it was not a kiss of surrender, nor a kiss of victory, it was the collision of two forces, two souls, two lives intertwined in a way that neither of us could escape. 10 years of plotting, 10 years of waiting, and in a single, electric moment, everything changed. I had planned his downfall for 10 years. He had known all along. And now, standing in his arms, I realized that sometimes, the greatest revenge is letting go, and the greatest power is surrendering to the only man who could ever match you, in every way. And I did. Another 15 minutes, gone just like that. If you're already craving the next episode, don't fight it, there's plenty more billionaire chaos where this came from. Hit that follow, and meet me in the next story. Trust me, it only gets juicier from here.